This June, Lollipop Chainsaw is turning 11 years old and was a game I only knew for two reasons: its bad reviews at launch, and introducing teenage me to Jessica Negru. Despite its reviews, it was a game I always wanted to try, so back in October I finally bit the bullet and picked it up with the intention of doing a sort of joke video on it, but I was actually really surprised at how much I enjoyed it. It's not a game with an incredibly well written story that grabs you, it doesn't have relatable characters that you feel attached to, and it's not a graphical masterpiece, but it is fun, and sometimes that's all a game needs. Before I started, I had a quick look at the trophy guide on PSN Profiles, which recommended your first playthrough be on hard, as some collectibles only spawn on that difficulty. At first I was hesitant to play on hard straight away, with my only experience in hack and slash games coming from the Devil May Cry series, and although I enjoyed my time playing through all the games, I admittedly did get stuck quite a few times despite playing on normal. But I decided the guide knew best and started on hard. The game opens with Juliet telling us it's her 18th birthday, which is probably so you don't feel like a total pervert with some of the camera angles that you're going to see throughout the game. She's running late to meet her boyfriend Nick in the park before school when she crashes her bike and discovers there's been a zombie outbreak at her high school, but luckily for us, she comes from a family of zombie hunters. The prologue has us fighting through the parking lot, and I was already finding the game challenging as I felt like I was constantly at low health, but despite that I was having fun, even if I was just button mashing. During the prologue, we're introduced to the game's collectibles and golden lollipops, which I'd have to find all 40 of for the Lollipop Addict trophy. We also come across classmates that you need to rescue for a trophy, however if they die they become a strong zombie that are a hassle to fight early game. Towards the end of level 1 I was finally starting to get the hang of the game when I discovered that instead of trying to do combos like I would do in Devil May Cry, it was actually easier to just drop kick them into a wall and then one shot them as they're stunned. I encountered my first named zombies and David and Marie, an old couple who absolutely beat the brakes off of me in our first fight. These named zombies have higher health along with unique attacks and usually appear far later in the game, but since I was playing on hard, appeared earlier and more frequently throughout the game. During my second attempt against them, I unlocked my first trophy, Juliet 51, for performing 51 dropkicks, all of which I did in 5 minutes after realising how OP the dropkicks could be. When Juliet reaches the park, as she's looking for Nick, she's oblivious to a zombie shuffling up behind her who Nick tackles, getting bit in the process. After Nick confesses his love to Juliet and apologises for ruining her birthday, she refuses to let Nick die.
No, there's something we can try. It's the only chance we have to save you.
Juliet? What the fuck?
I love you too, baby!
Stage 1 opens with Nick waking up in Juliet's arms as she's successfully performed a magic ritual on him to keep his head alive, and we now fight through the school looking for her sensei, Morikawa. Towards the beginning of the level I bought my first new move, the Chainsaw Stab, which is just Stinger from Devil May Cry, unlocking the Zombie Hunter Apprentice trophy after I got my first kill with it. Speaking of new moves, Nick's not just a head bouncing around on Juliet's hip, we're able to use him as a weapon with the Nick Toss ability, and this move in particular came in clutch so many times throughout my playthrough. We're introduced to a few new types of zombies this level as well, the police zombie who can fire their pistol at you, as well as the explosive zombies who make an excellent pair with fire zombies. Upon finding Sensei Morikawa, he suggests that we split up and teleports to the courtyard, leaving Juliet to defend her birthday cake made up entirely of explosives from a horde of fire zombies. After successfully defending the cake, a couple of explosive zombies are wheeled in, which forces us to run out the school just as it explodes. Outside we come across Sensei Morikawa and our antagonist of the game, Swan, a classmate of Juliet's who after years of being an outcast and rejected by his peers, summons the 5 dark purveyors to bring rot to Earth. After tossing aside Sensei Morikawa, one of the dark purveyors, Zed, comes to life and sends Juliet flying with his scream. We land in a scrapyard and have to make our way down to Zed as he performs on a stage, hurling abuse at us that we have to avoid. As our first boss battle, Zed was surprisingly really easy despite playing on hard, although he is a glutton for punishment.
You think that hurts me? I just jizzed a little.
After defeating the big goth, Sensei Morikawa makes his way over to us with a map showing the location of the 4 other dark purveyors that we must defeat, and gives Juliet her birthday gift before dying. His present was an upgrade to the chainsaw, giving us the ability to chainsaw dash, which we use heavily in the next stage. After making their way back to the school, blood droplets land on Nick with our second dark purveyor Vic passing overhead on his Viking longship. After dodging a couple of lightning bolts, Juliet notices her big sister Cordelia is climbing the ship, and after getting her attention, Cordelia drops Juliet her birthday present, but the wind catches it and it lands over at the baseball stadium. The largest majority of Stage 2 is fighting through the school, where I got my Rich Hunter trophy for collecting 1,000 zombie medals and then using our chainsaw dash to traverse the rooftop. We finally land in the baseball stadium after leaping off the school roof, and we get our hands on Cordelia's gift, the Chainsaw Blaster, an upgrade for the chainsaw that gives us the ability to fire shots from it. Immediately we're thrown into a minigame where we must use our new weapon to defend Nick as he runs to the home plate 3 times to win us a game of baseball. Afterwards we run into Cordelia, who throws us up onto Vic's ship just as it's leaving, setting us up for our battle against Vic. The fight in general was pretty straightforward, with the only annoying part coming after you cut him in half midway through the fight and you have to try and shoot his floating body whilst also avoiding his little legs from trying to drop kick you. But it was an alright fight that ends with Juliet cutting his massive head in half before axe kicking his pet bear. Stage 3 starts with Juliet waking up on the O'Bannon farm after Vic's ship crash landed there, just in time to see our little sister Rosalind fly past on an out of control school bus. This level has us following the path of destruction left by Rosalind as we kill chickens, kills, try to defend the bus, destroy mushrooms that take us to another dimension, kill massive chickens, the occasional horse, and even do a bit of harvesting. Overall, this was probably my least favourite level with just how bland the environment is, but I did get 2 trophies through this level. Groovy Hunter, which is for killing 500 enemies, and Sparkle Hunting Master for performing a 7 zombie sparkle hunt. After eventually catching up to Rosalind, as Juliet questions where she learned to drive, she realises that Rosalind's under control of one of the dark purveyors and is knocked unconscious. We meet Mariska, and her boss battle I actually found more awkward than the previous 2. She shoots bubbles at you which stop you from moving, multiplies herself after every stage, and also brings in these 2 massive harvesters that close in on you from each side, and because this is almost solely a ranged boss battle, I found myself getting caught a few times whilst trying to pick up ammo. After decapitating another dark purveyor, Juliet gets a call from a strange man who's kidnapped her sister.
Hey there, Juliet. Are you ready to boogie woogie?
Who is this? Why are you pretending to be Stephen Hawking?
He tells Juliet to meet him at the Fulci Fun Centre, and luckily Juliet's dad arrives in perfect time to give her a lift over and also get to know Nick a little.
Nick's tongue is very limber.
And how do you know that?
She doesn't. She doesn't know that at all, sir. She has no idea if my tongue is limber.
We're here.
When they arrive, Juliet hatches a plan on how to save her sister, which involves Juliet storming the building as her dad sneaks around back.
Dad, what's wrong?
My little girl is a tactical genius.
Your mom and me got a little something for your special day.
The gift we get is Nick Shoot, which is a Nick ability where Juliet throws him into the air and then hits him on the volley. Similar to Rosalind's gift, the Nick Popper, which I didn't mention earlier, these 2 abilities never seen much use in my playthrough as I preferred the Nick Toss for its area of effect and making you temporarily immune to damage. Stage 4 was definitely the most fun level in the game for me on my first playthrough, and I think that might be because this was where I finally had a solid understanding of the game's mechanics and was actually doing pretty decent combos by my standard. We start at the bottom floor and keep taking elevators up to the next floor with retro arcade sections in between. We have a Pac-Man-like minigame, 2D fighter one, which after googling I believe is based on a game called Elevator Action, Pong, where we have to kill enemies to shrink the bar that's defending the goal, and lastly one based off of Crazy Climber, which has you climb up the side of a building as windows open and close and objects get thrown at you, and I got very lucky on this minigame. One of the trophies that most people struggle with is No Fear of Heights, that requires you to beat the gondola game without firing a shot, and I somehow managed to beat this on only my 2nd try, and I know it was purely down to sheer luck because this minigame caused me a lot of stress later on. When we reach the top of the building we meet Josie for his boss battle, and he likes to ask Juliet the same question repeatedly.
Are you retarded? Retarded! Hurry, Juliet!
You retarded? You retarded?
Looking back, this was probably the best boss battle in the game, from the character and environment design to how the fight plays out. After defeating Josie inside, he flies out onto the rooftop where you have to destroy these pylons that give power to his shields. Because of the timer, I was trying my best to rush it, but it kinda backfired and I actually nearly died a few times. Luckily though, I did manage to beat it just in time with only 0.61 seconds left, which got me the critical UFO finish trophy. After Juliet's dad saves Rosalind, Juliet destroys Josie along with his ship. Stage 5 has us teaming up with the whole family as we make our way to the cathedral, and it does a great job of giving you this sense that we're building to a finale. Cordelia gives us cover from above, Rosalind drives a wrecking ball, and Dad punches a metal beam that sets off a domino effect, giving us access to what I thought was the final boss. Down below in the catacombs we meet Swan again, who's being protected by the final Dark Purveyor Lewis, and I hated this fight. The first section was fine, with him charging you on his bike, but then he transforms into some transformer elephant and the majority of the fight was just spent chasing him. After finally defeating him, Juliet turns her attention to Swan, but it's too late.
Your turn, you whiny MySpace-haired jerk!
Fantastic work, Juliet. You've done everything just as I hoped you would.
It turns out Swan used Juliet to kill the 5 Dark Purveyors so that he could complete a ritual that, after Swan pulls a Kurt Cobain, unleashes the zombie of zombies, Killabilly. Stage 6 has us chainsaw dashing through the streets to get to Killabilly, where the majority of the level is spent. Overall, I did find the fight quite challenging in sections, mainly when he throws explosive barrels at you with extreme precision, and when he sends the lowriders out to run you over, and you're trying to juggle between fighting the zombies and dodging a car that comes at you from off screen. After dealing enough damage, we're able to run up Killabilly's arm where we get a call from Sensei Morikawa, who tells Juliet that a path will come, allowing her to enter his mouth and get into his body.
I'm pretty good at keeping guys out of my body. Never tried getting inside of someone else's.
The path appears when, right as Juliet's about to get lasered by Killabilly, her dad sacrifices himself, creating a massive explosion in Killabilly's face. After convincing from Morikawa and Nick, an emotional Juliet enters Killabilly before the hole closes up. Inside, she comes across Swan's headless body and is told by Morikawa that she must put Nick's head onto Swan's body so that he can self-destruct and defeat the evil once and for all. After just losing her dad, she can't bear the thought of losing Nick, but after a heartfelt speech from him, she musters the strength to place Nick's head onto Swan's body. After the explosion, we see Nick's head floating around in space when Sensei Morikawa tells him that because of his heroic sacrifice, the Glorious Ones will resurrect him, but there's been a little mix-up with the bodies.
Nick!
Juliet! The mix-up. I've got Morikawa's body. Well, what the hell, I guess.
And also, Juliet's dad survived the explosion with only minor injuries.
Yep, think I lost a testy in the blast, but what the hell, you only need one.
So Juliet gets to walk into the sunset exclaiming that she has had the best birthday ever. That is until the credits end and she arrives home to her mother as a zombie because I got the bad ending. In the 6 hours and 47 minutes it took to beat the story, I only unlocked 19 of the 50 trophies, which meant we had some work to do. I split my remaining trophies into 4 categories: score attack, cumulative, mission specific and collectibles. The first thing I did was replay the prologue to knock out 2 quick trophies, one for saving all the classmates on that level and another for beating the high score set by Juliet's dad. After doing those, I rewarded myself with what I call the Jessica Nigri outfit and got to work beating the high score on each level. Overall, it took me a whopping 8 hours and 37 minutes just to beat the high score on the 4 remaining levels. Every level, bar one, I got on only my second or third attempt, but stage 4, stage 4 was torture. You'll remember earlier that I mentioned how I got lucky on the gondola game, and I really could have used that luck here. I died to the minigame 12 times, and you've got to keep in mind, not only is that minigame right before the boss battle at the end of the level, but I'm actively trying to get as high a score as possible every time in the hope that when I actually beat that minigame, I can actually beat the high score as well. After dying for the 12th time, I accepted it was time to look for help. At first, I tried 2 separate walkthroughs, but they weren't much help. And then it came to me, who knows games better than speedrunners? So I looked up the Lollipop Chainsaw speedrun and came across an old face, Enquiries. If you don't know him, he does great videos explaining speedruns, so I immediately skipped halfway into the video and there it was, the secret to beating the gondola game. Spamming the attack button. I couldn't believe it. After what felt like slamming my head off a wall for hours, the answer was so simple. After watching the video, I tried and I immediately beat the minigame. It took an extra 5 attempts to beat the high score, but I had finally done it, and I'm honestly so embarrassed that at no point did it ever occur to me that I could just spam attack and kill all the enemies. After that, I finished up the last of the collectibles. Luckily, I'd managed to collect most of them during my original playthrough, so I only had to find 3 of the 40 lollipops, 9 of the 35 name zombies, and rescue a handful of classmates. After saving the last classmate, I replayed the final mission to get the good ending, along with its trophy. This section took me just over 2.5 hours as I decided to also grab the last few mission specific and boss fight trophies that I needed. Now it was time to get some grinding done. I needed to spend 10,000 coins at the shop, which should have been easy since I'd already earned the trophy for getting 10,000 coins a few hours earlier, but for some reason you can't spend coins earned from score attack, so I had to re-earn all the coins. There's trophies for fully upgrading Juliet and purchasing all of her combos that take you over the 10,000 coins, and since I also had to earn the Love Nick trophy for kissing him 100 times, the Nick Shake ability came in handy here, killing 2 birds with the 1 stone. After spending 2 hours and 20 minutes, I had finally done the last of the trophies, apart from one. I decided to change Juliet back to her original outfit and earn Lollipop Chainsaw's most infamous trophy as my final trophy of the game. I swear, I did it by mistake. For this we had to look up Juliet's skirt, and finally, it was done. It took me a total of 20 hours and 27 minutes, but I was finally finished. The time realistically should have been a lot quicker, with just under 5 hours spent solely on stage 4 score attack, but I genuinely had a great time with the game, excluding that part of course. The combat grew on me and I found myself really enjoying some of the combos that I could pull off. The jokes, despite being childish, still made me laugh. The music in the game is amazing, although it did get my streams on both Twitch and YouTube DMCA'd. It's such a fun game, and not like anything I've ever experienced before. With it being my first Suda51 game, I'm definitely going to try out more of his other work sometime in the future, but should you try Lollipop Chainsaw? Right now it's a weird one for me because I really like the game and think most people should experience it. I also think it's a fun platinum that most trophy and achievement hunters would have a good time playing through, so long as they don't get stuck on the gondola minigame like me, but its current price tag is a big issue for me. Because of licensing issues with the music, it's no longer available to buy digitally, meaning if you want to play it, you'll need to grab a physical copy for either the PS3 or Xbox 360. And for Xbox players, you'll need to dust off the 360 as it's not available on backwards compatibility. I bought the game back in October/September from CEX for £32 and it's since risen in price to £40 for the PS3, which is just so hard to recommend a nearly 11-year-old game for that price. It has been confirmed that sometime in 2023 we're to get a current gen remake of the game, but because of the licensing issues, some songs will be missing. Depending on what songs, that could be a big blow to the game as the music genuinely does add a good amount to the experience. Despite that, I'd recommend waiting for the remake. However, if you're only wanting to play the story and not go trophy hunting, I'd only recommend buying the game after it goes on sale to the around £20 mark just due to how short the story is.